This is the Into the Paddock Podcast.
You have an all-star race. You have a very, very short race distance. In my mind, that would be a sprint race. The idea is that you want the drivers to go all out for the $1 million. In fact, it was marketed as such. However, because they brought tyres that degrade so much, no one was pushing. And you had this hilarious farce of a situation in the first half of the feature where any driver who wasn't in the top 5 was riding around 10 seconds a lap off the pace, just saving tyres so that they could push in the second half. It was woeful. And then the second half came around, and because the track is so tight, because it's not designed to be a racetrack, it's designed to be it's designed to be a track day playground for the rich and famous. No one could pass anyway. There was some overtaking, but it usually always ended in contact. Always you ended up with some driver getting pushed off on the corner exit. There was one good battle between, I think it was Will Power and potentially Alexander Rossi. I might be remembering that wrong, but either way, there was one relatively okay battle for a couple of corners. It was just an incredibly embarrassing spectacle. It wasn't even a spectacle. It was atrocious. We said when it was announced that they were coming to Thermal that this was a terrible idea. You know, I don't so much hate the idea of them coming here for pre-season testing, because you need a track where the weather's good, it's fairly consistent, and the track's got a little bit of everything. It's a good place to test the cars, but it's terrible for racing.
To belay any, I guess, preconceived notion about our attitude towards Thermal Club and what it's about, I don't mind Thermal Club. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool that if you have enough money, you can buy a house. You know, if it wasn't for rich car enthusiasts, we wouldn't have IMSA. You know, I mean, it's an expensive sport. Rich people play, and that's what we're into. It's fine. I think what we have a problem with, though, is IndyCar's decision to make this a middle of the season, car damaging, no fucking action bullshit event.
My disappointment comes in several factors from it. Yeah, I really dislike the fact that they went here specifically. I don't hate that.
Yes.
Like you, I don't hate that Thermal exists. If I were in that position financially as a car enthusiast, a racing enthusiast, I'd probably have a house there.
100%.
Yeah. But what I don't like was the fact, and we detailed all of this last year when they announced this race, there was next to no attendance for actual fans. They made 2,000 tickets available, if memory serves. Originally, they cost $2,000 a ticket. They lowered them to $500. They said it was to try and help the fans. I say it was because they didn't sell any fucking tickets, and
Probably
from people at the track, they still didn't sell it, like a lot of them. The credit I will give the Thermal Club is that once you got into the venue for $500 for the weekend, everything was free. Like the food was free and everything. You know, there was
it should be.
Incredible access to the drivers as well. There was no like tier system where you couldn't get to where the drivers were. You had some people saying they were queuing up for tacos, and there was fucking Scott Dixon just getting tacos as well. You know, fair enough. But it's just not what IndyCar needs at this point. You know, we've spoken so many times about what IndyCar needs, and what IndyCar needs is to be putting itself out there and winning over fans. So, and I'm quoting word for word what I said last year, by hosting a exhibition race for money in front of people with money, in front of next to no fans, it's just there's a million and one things that IndyCar could be doing instead of this that would improve it a lot more. I would much rather they invested all of this money into another race somewhere else, internationally, perhaps. You know, we really need an international race. There's so many IndyCar fans of Pato Award, for example, that we could be racing in Mexico. You know, there's all sorts of things we could have been doing. The venue I don't like. The fact that we went there, again, the exclusivity of it, the fact that NBC spent the entire time basically just advertising the venue and thanking the distinguished members of the Thermal Club for allowing them to come and play in their playground. I hated the constant sucking up to them. Personally, this is just me. I find it quite irritating when people in a well-off situation flaunt their wealth in front of everybody, and it felt like much of this race was just rich people flaunting their wealth. It didn't really come across well for me. I'm sure there are many other motorsport fans who aren't as well off who found that quite irritating as well. Especially when IndyCar usually prides itself on being the more accessible form of motorsport, you know, both to watch, both to go and attend. You know, ticket prices are much lower than other events. It was a weird diversion from what IndyCar usually stands for. You know, it just seemed entirely odd, this change of ethos. It was like they tried to embrace being Formula One, you know, being for the rich.
What a dichotomy. Right? You have a race in May where potentially anyone can enter, and if you're fast enough, you get to race. And then you have this extremely exclusive, you can't even watch if you don't have enough money.
Yeah.
Type of race. And again, look, here at Into the Paddock, we're huge Ben Keating fans.
Oh, yeah.
What is Ben Keating but a guy who owns some car dealerships here in South Texas and likes to go racing? We're huge fans of that. Huge fans. But this is not, it's not a good move. Not a good look. Not a good venue for having an actual wheel-to-wheel race. Perfect for testing. But yeah, like I said, I didn't watch any of it. I refused to, because it just put that much of a bad taste in my mouth. And it was for no points. It was inconsequential to the rest of the season anyway.
It was just so disappointing to see IndyCar do this. It just completely, it just does not mesh with any of the decisions that IndyCar should be making or has previously made, you know. And get in the wider context of IndyCar being in a very bad situation at the moment, with a number of bad calls they've made over the last few years, be it with where they race, how often they race, the whole trying to attract a different engine manufacturer, trying to get the teams paid because racing's expensive. You know, Honda are considering pulling out because the money doesn't make sense. It's just further fuel on the unsatisfying fire that is IndyCar at the moment, unfortunately. The racing is good at other places. You know, St. Petersburg wasn't the most exciting race in the world, but it still wasn't the usual really good start to the season we've had. And then you follow it up with this. Oh, boy. And we even though this race was brought in to fill in the gap between the first and the second rounds, Long Beach is still weeks away. You know, we've still got a really long wait, and now we've just got a really bad taste in our mouth to have until then. Like, oh, boy. I love IndyCar. I really do. It's my favorite series. I wouldn't be going all the way to America in May to watch the 500 if I didn't love it. All of this moaning comes from a place of wanting the series to do good. It's my favorite championship. It really, really is. The sport desperately needs to grow for it to carry on and to be this series that we all love. And this, amongst all the other poor decisions recently, just won't help. So, IndyCar, do better.
This is the Into the Paddock Podcast.